So it's really not a difficult argument to make that in America, consumerism is key to our culture and our foundation and really our sense of selves. And although this seems like it's just come about in the last 20 years or so with a rise in advertising and marketing and TV and celebrity gossip, this actually started last century, and it was a plot by the financial elites and a lot of the big corporations in this country to ensure that there were always Americans to buy their products. And you can go back to a quote from Paul Mazur, who worked at Lehman Brothers, which obviously maintained a lot of its prominence and power throughout the century, and he said that people must be trained to desire, to want new things even before the old have been entirely consumed. We must shape a new mentality in America. Man's desires must overshadow his needs. And it was with this thinking that Edward Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, actually, perhaps great-nephew, the American nephew, sought to apply psychological techniques to manipulate Americans into being obsessed with shopping and buying products. And this is a guy who, in his 1928 book called Propaganda, appropriately said that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. And this is the guy who sold everything from borrowing money from banks to buy shares to the average American to the idea that bacon and eggs is the traditional American breakfast. He sold cigarettes to women in a time when it was taboo, and he did it by associating cigarettes with liberty and challenging male power. And he had debutantes march in an Easter parade in New York and light up cigarettes to prove that it was okay, and he successfully broke that taboo. This is a guy who thought to pair celebrities with products and put them in magazines. He worked for William Randolph Hearst, who was one of the biggest publishers and still is. And this gave birth to celebrity gossip, where Hollywood public relations people were planting gossip stories about actors and actresses strategically around the time that their movies came out so that they could promote buzz for it. And this is also a guy who sought to attach, basically in all of these feats that he accomplished, he sought to attach emotion to products, whereas before they had been sold on the basis of rationality, where a pair of shoes is good because it's well made and it'll last a long time. This became instead the concept of, if I have this product, I will be happier. And you can see this today, where makeup and fashion are sold as the key to confidence or the key to finding love, and even males are sold, like, look at the Axe commercials. It's basically a promise that if you buy Axe, you're going to have sex, and that's very much an emotional sell, not a rational sell, which is you won't smell anymore. But this gets very interesting because Edward Bernays is not just a guy who sold products. This is a guy who got the start of his career by working for the Committee on Public Information, which Woodrow Wilson started to promote the war effort. And Edward Bernays did such a good job convincing Americans who were very war-weary that they should go to war that he actually got to go to Paris with Wilson at the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. So this is also the same guy that helped orchestrate the 1954 CIA overthrow of the Guatemalan democratically elected government in order to put someone in office that would favor the American fruit company, United Fruit. And when you think about it in that context, it's really not surprising that what he did has grown so much, because it was not only a strategy that overtook the entire country, but in 1927, an American journalist wrote that a change has come over our democracy. It is called consumption. The American citizen's first importance to his country is now no longer that of citizen, but that of consumer. And if you look at the state of America today, it makes perfect sense, because Americans aren't citizens anymore, and they couldn't care less. They care more about Miley Cyrus's new video where she's naked than they do about the potential of going to war. And while Americans stay completely invested in all these superficial values that are so tied to their sense of self, and their sense of self is so dependent on getting happiness from products, it's no surprise that America and the American government does whatever it wants and spies on people and arrests people and conducts searches without warrants and kills people all over the world, because Americans are no longer citizens. They're consumers who invest their emotions, their money, their time, their thoughts, their consciousness in superficial values that were planted over a century ago because a bunch of bankers and corporations wanted it to be done, and governments wanted to go to war without getting people upset about it and telling them to stop.